In this part of the chapter, we'll be looking at other improvement in crop yields, the methods that are involved to improve in the crop yields, and this method now includes crop production. So we will be having a look at what adequate measures are being taken to ensure that the crop that you're producing, they are getting the important nutrients, they're getting the important proper irrigation, and also the soil, the land on which they are being sown, that retains the important nutrients. Okay, crop production improvement is important, like I told you, because we have to look at the kind of soil that we are using. All right, whether the soil is having those important nutrients that the respective plants is going to intake. Okay, then water. Water is important as it also will provide the plants with the important minerals. So whether the plant is getting proper irrigation, the crops, the plants, whether they're getting proper irrigation or not is also important. Thirdly, we also have to look at whether we are sowing our crops. Okay, so if say you're sowing one particular type of crop in a particular area and you're sowing that crop repetitively, all right, then the soil in those areas is going to be bereft of all the nutrients that have been used, that have been utilized in order to provide for those crops, because those crops have been, sown very exhaustively. All right, so we have to look at different patterns that are going to ensure that the crops are also being rotated, and the soil, it is also the nutrients that the soil should have, that nutrients is also being maintained and restored. Okay, but you have to remember that there, apart from these three factors, or apart from these three determinants, there is one more determinant that is an external, that is a human determinant, and that is about economy. All right, now all different farmers, all different kind of farmers, they don't have the means of livelihood, they don't have the same means of livelihood. What I mean to say is that some farmers, they may be richer and they may be open to access different kinds of fertilizers and different kinds of technology that have been made and that have been prevalent in use in order to increase the crop yield, whereas the poor farmers, they may not be able to get their hands on even the high variety crops. All right, owing to no economy. All right, so this external factor, this economic factor, all right, this has led to another kind of scarcity in the crop production, in the crop yield. Okay, and that is basically three kinds, that is no cost production, low cost production, okay, and high cost production. So the farmers who are very rich, who have their means to access high yielding variety crops, and who have access to different fertilizers and pesticides, and who have access to the technological, advanced technological equipments, they are going to, their products are going to be naturally very high. All right, so they are high cost production. Low cost production means those farmers who have comparatively lesser means to employ in order to procure equipments for the crop yields. Whereas some farmers may be poor and they may just depend on their natural methods, their own hands or their own cattle, or just they may be not even using any other method for irrigation. They may be just waiting for the rainwater. Okay, so that leads to no cost production. Okay, so apart from the soil, water, and the different cropping patterns that we'll be learning about, this another economical factor you should also keep in mind. Now, let's talk about the nutrient management, the first category, all right, about the soil, what important nutrients we are getting from the soil. Okay, so the plants, they are getting nutrients definitely from soil, but apart from soil, like I told you, irrigation is important. So water is important, and definitely air, because they're getting carbon dioxide from air. So you get carbon and oxygen from air. Plants get carbon and oxygen from air. They get hydrogen and oxygen from water. And the soil, in the soil, there are two type of nutrients. There are macronutrients, those nutrients that are being required by the plants in high quantity. Okay, and macronutrients are those nutrients that are required in higher quantities. All right, and then there are those nutrients that are being required by the plant in small quantities, and these are the micronutrients. Macro means big, so the nutrients that plants require in more amount, they are the macronutrients, and micro means small, so the nutrients that the plants require in small quantities, they are the micronutrients. Macronutrients are large complex like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. Micronutrients could be iron, manganese, boron, zinc, copper, molybdenum, chlorine. Okay. What are macronutrients and why are they called macronutrients? So we have just seen macronutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur. Okay, these are the kind of nutrients that the plants require for their growth. All right, and their overall nourishment, their overall well-being. Okay, and these kind of nutrients the plants require in higher amount, in larger quantity. Okay, in larger quantity. That is why they are known as macronutrients. Okay, how do plant get nutrients? Plant definitely get their nutrients from the important elements that are present in the soil. Apart from that, plants also get nutrients from air such as carbon and oxygen. Okay, and plants also get their nutrients from water such as hydrogen and oxygen and other minerals. Okay, so these are the three sources from which plants get nutrients. Yes. So the kind of nutrients that the plants get and the kind of nutrients that we'll be learning about, there are two types of nutrients. One is organic. That means one kind of nutrient is made through organic means. Through organic means through the use of other dead and rotten and decomposed plant or animal materials. Okay, and the other kind would be fertilizers. So fertilizers, they are chemicals, all right, chemicals in the sense that they are inorganic substances. All right, they are not being derived directly from plants and animal remains. Rather, they are the important elements that the plants require, the important nutrients that the plants require. They are present. Those inorganic substances are directly present in the fertilizers, whereas in manure, which is the organic component that we'll be learning, the nutrients are present through the dead remains of plants and animals. Okay, so manure, they are the source of large quantities of organic matter. Organic matter means the fertilizing quality, the nutrients, they are being derived from plants as well as animals and other organisms that are also decomposing and that are also increasing to the fertility quality of the soil. Okay, so they supply small quantities of nutrients to the soil because they are being derived from these remains. All right, they are not getting directly. Plants and animals are not getting. Sorry, plants are not getting directly the nutrients, those important elements, but rather they are deriving their nutrients from plants and animals. And how are they prepared? They're prepared by decomposition, by the degradation of either animal excreta and plant waste. All right, so animal and plant refuse. Okay, and definitely they increase the soil fertility. So there are three kinds of manure. There is compost, there is vermicompost, and there is green manure. Okay, so we'll be learning all about them. Compost is that kind of a manure that is derived from plants and animals. Means the definition that you learned of manure, that manure is that fertilizing quality, that fertilizing material that plants get from the plants and animals remains. All right, either from the dead parts or the decomposed parts. All right, so manure is that part. All right, like nitrogen and phosphorus and nutrients. So this is the plant waste over here. All right, and we have the animal waste, which is the animal excreta, the cow dung and other waste. All right, and we are getting manure, that organic substance that the farmers, you may see, they are spreading in the soil so that the soil particles, they absorb these nutrients. That leads to the growth of healthy plants. So the first kind of manure that you get is the compost, and the compost you are getting directly from the plant and animal remains. So, and in addition to the plant animal remains, you are also adding other waste items such as sewage items. Those items, mind you, those items that are degradable, that are biologically degradable, means that can the microorganisms, they can work upon them to decompose them, to break them into smaller particles. So degradable sewage waste or degradable kitchen waste, animal excreta, animal refuse, plant remains, and they are being decomposed in pits. So large pits are being dug in the ground, and these wastes, they are dumped, and some water is added, and they're covered. They're covered so that the bacteria can act on them, all right, and they can be degraded, they can be decomposed into a very greeny fertilizing texture that can be then spread onto the soil. Okay, then when you add extra living organisms to these waste, so that the process of manure, the process of the production of manure is, increased or is enhanced or is amplified, all right, then you are making a vermicompost. So compost prepared during earth using earthworms. So you're adding other living organisms, earthworms and other or you may also say other organisms that act upon these dead plant animal remains and ensure that the nutrient quality is increasing. They aid, they hasten the process, they help the process. Okay, so they hasten the process of decomposition of the that plant animal remains that you're getting from the compost. Okay, and this process is then occurring faster and more efficiently. So this is your vermicompost. The third kind of manure is the green manure. Green manure is your purely those plants that are grown specifically for the purpose of being mulched, for the purpose of extracting nutrients from them. All right. So green plants like sun hemp, guar, they are rich in nitrogen and phosphorus. All right. Those plants that are rich in nitrogen and phosphorus, they are grown, all right, and after they grow to a certain length, to a certain period, then they are mulched by plowing, means they are then mulched, they are then sown again into the soil, they're crushed and sown into the, they're mulched into the soil by plowing, all right, so that they go deeper into the soil and they spread the nutrients that they were carrying when they were alive. Okay, so this is directly you are using those live plants to in order to be used as manure. So hence the name is green manure. Okay, you can see the farmer, he is plowing the field in order to spread the manure that he has obtained either from compost, either from vermicompost or from the green manure. Now, next we'll be talking about those kind of nutrient management that take the help of chemical substances. Chemical substances naturally means inorganic substances. Inorganic substances means those substances that are not being derived from the direct plant and animal remains or waste or other items. All right. So fertilizers, they are chemical substances. They are produced in factories and they directly contain those elements that are being used up by the plants as nutrients. Elements such as nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, etc. that are required by crops. Okay, and they are easily absorbed by plants since they are water soluble. So you are naturally in manure you were providing the plants wastage remains, all right, and the soil was absorbing the nutrients from those waste and then those nutrients were being taken up by plants. But here you are directly applying, you're directly providing those elements, those nutrients that are required for the plants for the growth, all right. So naturally plants would be able to absorb nutrients more readily from the fertilizers than from the manure. Okay, so these are easily absorbed. The second reason why they are easily absorbed is because they are water soluble, means they can be easily mixed into the soil. Now manure, they were containing some remains, some wastage. So you cannot just mix into the soil and form a very homogeneous kind of mixture. All right, but here in the fertilizers you may do so because they are easily soluble in water. All right, but since they are being produced by the factories, you're not using organic substances but rather you are using handmade artificial products, all right, so they are costly, and if you may remember then this may fall into the category of the high cost or may fall into the category of low cost, but it readily falls into the category of high cost production depending upon the economic factor of the farms. Okay, so you're seeing that from the factories, from the industries, we are getting the fertilizers, and these fertilizers are rich in nutrients like urea, the complex compound of nitrogen, then ammonium sulfate, superphosphate, potash, all right, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and then they are being used directly on the plants as fertilizers, as an important distributor of nutrients. Okay. So here we'll be having a look at the differences between manures and fertilizers. Manures, they are organic substances. They're derived from plants and animals' remains. Fertilizers, they are inorganic. They directly contain those chemical substances that are being then absorbed by the plants as nutrients. Okay, they are made of natural resources. These are made of chemical substances. Okay, they have less amount of nutrients, since I told you that they are not water soluble, and they cannot be directly used up by the plants. But the fertilizers, the elements can be directly used up by the plants, so naturally they are going to have large amount of nutrients. All right, and manures, they are cheap because you don't require anything extra for the production, but you require something extra for the production of fertilizers. So therefore, they are being purchased from the market, and therefore they are costly. Okay. Another difference is that manures, they are slowly absorbed, like I told you, because they are insoluble in water. Fertilizers, they are soluble in water. And it is difficult to store and transport manure because you have to remember, you have to dig very huge pits into the ground so that the compost and the vermicompost can be made. So it is very difficult to store and transport it because that will stink, that will rot. It is decaying, rotting, decomposing material, right? So it's going to stink, and that's going to provide an impediment in the process of storing and transporting. Okay, whereas in the case of fertilizers, their storage and their transportation is comparatively easier. Okay, manures, they are cheap because, like I told you, they're being prepared in rural homes or fields, and fertilizers, they are costly. Compare the use of manure and fertilizers in maintaining soil fertility. So you know that manure, since they are insoluble in water, and the nutrients you have, that is not so rich. So nutrients are not so rich in manure. So they are not going to provide an increased soil fertility. Whereas fertilizers, they are soluble, they are water soluble, all right, and they have more nutrients. So naturally, they are going to increase the soil fertility more. Okay. There is a term known as organic farming. And by the name, or since there is the use of the word organic, so you may be understanding that that kind of the farming process that take the help of organic substances, no inorganic substances, means no use of fertilizers, no use of herbicides or pesticides, because all of these, they are chemicals, all of these, they are inorganic substances. Okay. So those farming techniques that only employ organic substances with minimal or no use. So there may be use, but that use is almost negligible. So we say that it is being used minimally. Okay, so minimal or no use of chemicals as fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides. So using green leaf manure or vermicompost or simple your compost, your simple manure, or you're using biofertilizers, means there are some living organisms also that act upon the decomposing material, and they produce is the biofertilizer. But then you're using the sources of the animal remains. You're biologically managing the crop rotation that we'll be learning about. All right. So all of these factors, they incorporate the organic farming. This leads to maximum input of organic manures, recycled farm waste. Obviously, if you are using plant remains, animal remains, so somewhere or the other you are recycling. All right, you're not using any extra chemical or inorganic substances. You're using straw, the hay that you get, and livestock excreta. Okay, then you're using bioagents, so those organisms that are also responsible for increasing the fertility of the soil. All right, these agents, definitely they are the earthworms, and apart from the earthworms, a culture of blue green algae in preparation of biofertilizers, neem leaves, turmeric, especially in grain storage, they act as biopesticides. All right, so again, the culture of blue-green algae, okay, in preparation of biofertilizers, means in addition to neem leaves or turmeric, especially while storing the grain, they act as biopesticides, means they resist the crops, they resist the harvest from attacks by other pathogens, by attacks by other animals. Okay, with healthy cropping systems, means you're not employing the use of herbicides and pesticides, rather you are using that blue green algae, and you are, in addition to turmeric leaves or neem leaves, and then you are employing it to be stored along with the grains, along with the harvest, so that there could be no infestation of bacteria, crops, or other animals. Okay. The second category for the crop production management is improvement is the irrigation. We learned about that there are three types, right? There is irrigation, there has to be the nutrient management, and then there has to be other crop patterns. All right. So here we will be learning about irrigation. It is the process of supplying water to the crop, since water is also essential, carrying important nutrients. Methods, there are two types of methods. One is the dug well that you can see over here, the normal the in Hindi which you call kuwa, and then there are tube wells in Hindi which you call the chavakal. All right, so being they are being used so that underground water could be harvested, underground water could be procured for the use of irrigation, for the use of supplying water to the crops. Okay, then there are other channels known as canals. So as you can see here in the picture, they are small channels like these that are being dug in between the fields, or somewhere, sometimes even at the side of the field, and they are then connected to the field area, and water is being drawn from large rivers, so that these water can be supplied to the farms, to the farmlands. Okay. Other process of irrigation, other methods of irrigation are tanks. Some tanks, they are stored. They are used as small reservoirs, small storage reservoirs. Means in the case of water need, or water when there is no water available, say from precipitation, all right, and you need water, okay, and there is some scarcity of water, so from this stored reservoir you can extract water and then you can irrigate it onto the field. Then there is a river lift system. Okay, in this case, river is the channel is being dug that is connected directly from the river to the farmland. All right, so you're getting not through a very connected or a networked source of canals, but rather you're directly using the river water and directing it towards your farm. All right, this can be done through pumps and other methods. Okay, then the rainwater harvesting means the precipitation that happens, the rain when it happens, all of the water, some of it that is being harvested, that means some of it is being stored in some other area, so that if need be, those stored water could be then employed, could be then irrigated to the farmland. Okay, so these are the systems that you learned in this part of the chapter. In the next part, you will be learning about the third crop production improvement, that is your crop rotation. All right, how you are employing, how you're sowing the crops onto your field, and we'll be finally reaching to the third part, that is the crop protection management. In this part of the chapter, we'll be learning about the third method of crop production improvement, that is your how you are managing your crops to be sowed in patterns. All right, and we'll be also looking at the third important part that is necessary in improvement in crop yields, that is we'll be learning about the crop protection management, means how we are protecting the harvested crops. Okay. The third part that we have to look when we are talking about the production management or the production improvement, that is the cropping patterns. All right. So in order to maximize production for crop fields, different crop patterns are utilized. It is either known as mixed cropping or intercropping or crop rotation. So these are three different methods by which farmers, they ensure that the nutrients in the soil, the nutrient management is being evenly distributed and that is not being disturbed. All right. The first method is through mixed cropping. In this method, in one farm area and one farm land, two different types of crops are being sown. So say one part of the farm land is being used to sow, for example, wheat, and the other part mustard or gram. All right. So what happens is that the kind of nutrients that wheat requires and the kind of nutrients that mustard or gram requires, they're different. All right, and since they are being sown onto one farm area, one farmland, so the farmer is ensuring that the different nutrients present there, they all of them are being absorbed, all of them are being utilized by the two different set of plants equally, so that there is no wastage or so that there is no lack. of nutrients. If both these products would have extracted the same amount of nutrients or the same type of nutrients, then that may lead to a nutrient lack. All right, but since you are pairing those kind of crops that have different requirements, this can ensure that the mixed cropping is successful in that same area of land. Intercropping is somewhat like mixed cropping. The only difference here is that you are, instead of just dividing the whole area into two different parts, you are, sowing the different crops alternately. All right. So say two or more crops are being sown of finger millet or bajra, and then cowpea. Two or three rows of cowpea are being sown. All right, and then after that, again two or three finger millet crops would be sown, and then again 2-3 rows of cowpeas. So this is working alternately. All right, this also ensures that the nutrient distribution is managed equally, and then there is no lack. All right. Lastly, you have the crop rotation. Now, like I had told you in one of the previous slides, that if you will be sowing only one kind of crop in that farmland, then ultimately whatever the nutrients that that particular product is utilizing is using, all right, it will be all exhausted. The soil would be all exhausted of all those nutrients, right? Because you are growing the same kind of crops all and all over again. All right, but say if you're using say if you are sowing wheat once, and then you are sowing cowpea the other time, okay, and then the other time you're sowing maize. All right, so you're ensuring that different kind of products, different kind of crops are being sown onto a farmland. Not one kind is just being sown and then the nutrients, there is a lack in the soil nutrients. Okay, this ensures that there is no lack in the soil nutrients. All right. The main, the whole purpose of cropping pattern is to ensure that the soil, the nutrients in the soil is being preserved. That is not being utilized. That is not being overly used. That is not being exhausted. All right. So you have to preserve that nutrient management. All right. So in this case, different crops are grown one after the other on the same field, and growing the same crop again and again, like I told you, that extracts the same nutrients from the soil continuously. Hence, this ensures that the soil's nutrients, they are utilized, they are being preserved. Okay. Advantages of crop rotation is definitely that soil fertility is being maintained. Other thing is that it helps in the control of weeds and pests. Weeds are those unwanted plants, those unwanted plant types that they compete for sunlight, they compete for water, they compete for nutrients, and often they suck away the important nutrients. All right. So, for example, if the growth of one kind of plants also ensures that weeds are growing along with them, and when you keep on growing that kind of plant only, then the weeds would also be thriving along with that plant. All right, and since weeds, they are unnecessary plants, they are unwanted plants, and they're extracting the nutrients from the soil, means they are ensuring that lesser nutrients are being provided to the other kind of plant, that is our desired product. All right, so if you are growing crops in rotation, this will ensure that these weeds will grow lesser and lesser amount. And also, if some kind of plant is vulnerable to a pest attack, the crop rotation would also ensure that that pest attack is would be would be decreased. All right, because again, if you grow one type of plant again and again, then the pest, they may also start attacking more, say aggressively, or their infestation then would become more obvious. All right, but if you keep a rotation, then that would ensure that if you're using some herbicides or if you're using some bio agents, then those pests could be eliminated well. Okay, then several crops can be grown in succession. This is the very logical consequence, that you'll be able to grow 2-3 crops, not just one type of crop. And now we finally come to the crop protection management. In the third part of this, the third part where you will learn that how you increase the improvement in the crop yields. So this is done so that the crops, they can be protected against pathogens, against those pests and viruses and other animals. And also you have to keep in mind the storage of grains. The storage is important because oftentimes other animals or other Even pests, they may attack while the grains are being stored, and also some kind of moisture, some kind of increase or decrease in temperature that may also lead to the damage of the harvested crops. All right, so the storage is also very important. So the methods for crop protection management is storage of grains and pest control during the growth of crop. Pest, you know that all those organisms that are destroying the plants, that are causing harm to the plants, and basically just damaging it. Okay, they are known as pests. So pests can be of weeds. Like I told you that weeds, they are the unnecessary, they are the unwanted plants that they grow along with some crops. Okay, and when they grow, they compete for sunlight and other important sources, and they also suck away the important nutrients, so that the desired product is getting lesser and lesser nutrients. So this can be taken in the category of pests. These are Xanthium, Parthenium, and Cyperinus rodentis. Okay, so weeds are those unwanted plants. You may often see them growing at the side in the lower area, and they, although they may be very small in size, but they are larger in number, and this ensures that they are widespread, and they are they are providing, they're leaving out less nutrients for the healthier plants. Other type of pest is insects. Insects, they attack the plants in three ways. Okay, they either cut the root, leaf, or stem. Okay, means they directly attack the plant parts, or they suck out the cell sap. Means they make the plants hollow from the inside. They suck out the cell sap, that important, that important medium of the plant. Okay, that important food of the plant. All right. Uh, or they bore into the stems and fruits. Means this is again a direct attacking. They bore means they hole into the stem and into the fruits. So they are again, by boring them, by holing them, they are rendering them hollow. And the third kind is the pathogens. Those organisms, microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, and even fungi. Yes, even fungi that may cause diseases in plants. All right. Which of the following conditions will give the most benefits and why? So, if you read through all of them, you will realize that the third part, the C part, where the farmer is using quality seeds, all right, then it is adopting, he or she is adopting the method of irrigation, using fertilizer, and also using crop protection measures. So basically, all the processes are being used here. All right, all the processes are being used that will ensure that there is an improved increase in the crop yield. So the C part will reap the most benefits, because you're using quality seeds, you're providing water to the plant, you're using fertilizer, means you're providing extra nutrient that the soil may be lacking. All right, and also you're ensuring that the plants, they are being protected from pests, and they're being stored in a very healthy manner. Okay, to achieve supply of seasonal food all around the year. Now you may think that there are only two seasons of cropping, right? There is a rainy season, there is a winter season. Then how are we getting our desired food products throughout the year? Because those food or those grains, they are being stored. All right, and storing, it requires that the grains are being stored in a very optimum condition of temperature, optimum condition of moisture. All right, and in order to store the grains, it is also important that first of all you are washing it very properly. All right, washing it so that the extra fertilizer or whatever other chemical products that you may have used, they are being washed away. Then you are ensuring that they are drying very properly. They are drying in the sunlight, and then they are also drying in the shade. Okay, and the third thing that you can do is that while you are storing them in a particular area, you should ensure that they are in shade and they are protected from other harmful pests and other damaging organisms that could that would damage this grain storage, and that would ultimately lead to a shortage of that particular grain. So there is biotic loss and there is abiotic loss. Biotic loss, bio means life, so though that kind of a loss of grains that is caused by living organisms such as insects, rodents, fungi, bacteria, and mites that may damage the crops and that may lead to its lack. Abiotic loss by the non-living factors such as increase, say, in the temperature, moisture, or decrease in the temperature or moisture, and that may lead to the damaging of grains. All right. So when you are storing, or the place where you are storing, you should ensure that some biofertilizer are being used, or even some biopesticides, or even some pesticides. If you pesticides in the sense ki not in those chemical liquids that you're using while the crops they are being while the crops are growing, but those chemical substances that may use while you are storing the grains. Okay. Why should preventive measures and biological control methods be preferred for protecting crops? So, always biological control should be preferred over any other sort of inorganic control, because biological control ensures that the ecology is being maintained, or it is ecologically stable. All right, ecologically stable. Okay. Then why you should ensure that preventive measures and biological method controls are being taken to protect crops, because if you are not ensuring that some preventive measures are being taken, then your crops they may be attacked, they may be infested by pests, by pathogens, by weeds, all right, or by other insects. Okay, and they may damage your crops, they may damage your crops. Okay, damaged crops or damaged grains if you're storing them. This may also occur during both the times, while you are storing and while the plant is already growing. All right. So damage the crops or damage the grains after they are harvested. So in order to ensure that this is not happening, we should ensure that some preventive measures and some biological control, if you may remember the biopesticide, that use of blue-green bacteria along with neem leaves and turmeric is being kept when in the place where you are storing the grains. So that could be used so that the plants could be protected. All right. What factors may be responsible for losses of grains during storage? So there are two kind of factors. One is the biotic loss, which is the loss that is incurred by living organisms, again such as pests and pathogens. All right. And then you have the abiotic loss. Abiotic loss means a non-living loss. All right. So that loss that is being incurred by the excess of heat, say in the excess of temperature or the excess of moisture, or sometimes even the drop of temperature or the lack of moisture. All right. So some optimum temperature, some optimum moisture is necessary, and increase or decrease in either of them may lead to the abiotic loss of grains during shortage. So this was the part where your improvement in crop yields, that means the food resources that you're getting from plants, that is ending over here. And the second, in the next part of the chapter, we will be learning about animal husbandry, the products that we are getting from animals, the food resources that we are getting from animals, and the methods that we need to keep in mind while we are rearing those animals for our purpose.